Hey there, folks. How are we all doing today? My name is Michael Henderson. I am the lead designer, only designer on Distal, a D20 fantasy role-playing game that you can play right now for free. Currently, we are on BackerKit at playdisrpg.com, and today I wanted to quickly kind of give you a 1 week update since we launched the campaign on BackerKit on the 24th, 25th. What are the days? Last week. And so I wanted to give a quick update as to how the project is currently trending and then where we're going next. So, with that being the case, let me pop on over here real quick. Share some stuff and things. Oh, no, that's not what I wanted. Don't look at it. Try again. Nope, still not what I wanted. Well, it is what it is. Okay, the so the campaign is currently trending at, well, it's currently at 5,550, and we got 68 backers and 28 days left. How I view this is that it's actually like a 50-50 chance whether or not this project funds. Typically, you see the most pickup within the first 48 hours, and usually you have a lot more leads going into a project than than I did, since this is my first foray into the uh, crowd funding space and the first project that I'm creating, and also the first foray into the TTRPG space. So, with that being the case, it definitely relies on your support. There's no risk if you would like to. Actually, just a moment here. If you would like to support the game, you can do that right now at playdisrpg.com. And like I said, no risk. Like, you go in, you back it, and if the project doesn't fund, then we don't take your money, which is a really cool thing about BackerKit and Kickstarter. That's like you would choose, but BackerKit just says like, no, if you're not gonna, it's not gonna fund, then we're not gonna deal with that. So a couple other things right up top is that we're going to be doing a little bit of a giveaway today. So in the last update, which you can check out here, I'll pop the link into the chat. We are doing another giveaway. We did this during our launch stream as well, but it's a pledge upgrade. So if you've at least uh, pledged to the digital edition, and you can you're in a region that we can ship to, and you pay for the shipping. If you're using like PDF pledge, it'll be upgraded to a book, and then if it's a book, it'd be upgraded to the $80 thing, which comes with the monthly digest. And then if you're already at that tier, you'll get a limited edition. And the limited edition is actually, if you're already at that tier, then we'll give you another version of the or a bonus book of the hard copy. And if you did end up winning the giveaways in the last stream, that's Ben B. Rockin, Kitling, Novi, and Incendium RPGs. Don't worry about. We talked about giving you a giveaway code before. It's actually not necessary, and your name's on a list, so don't even worry about it. And then later we're going to go through a few of the, actually I guess all the questions that were submitted by the community, and we'll talk a little bit about the game. So you have a last chance here. Go to this post. If you can't win multiple giveaways, I'm sorry. But go to the post, follow the instructions, and then by the end of this stream, we'll do the giveaway, and then one lucky winner will get a nice upgrade. All right. So what else have we got on the list? So aside from that, I wanted to talk a little bit about what is on the horizon for Distal, the things that I'm working on currently, because quite frankly, up to this point, the last alpha version of the game has been very, I would say, static, because released it, then was focused on getting the backer kit set up, and then the backer kit, and I'm kind of sort of focused on running it, but I'm in a lull where I can actually start refocusing on the game, and I would like to get to the point where I'm putting out another alpha version, and that will be the last alpha packet to land before the project launches. So alpha packet 6 currently in the works. Then the May monthly digest that'll be up here as well, and that'll be free for everybody because it'll be done while the campaign is still running. And then every up or digest after that, which is like a monthly supplement, a digital supplement that can expand your game and give you a bunch of tools to play Distal with and kind of just do more with. And then we're gonna, I guess, cash out the giveaway, and then we'll run Q&A with all the folks who submitted questions. So that being said, let's run through it. So that's what's on the horizon. Let's talk about Alpha 6. So in the alpha version of the game, it's been in testing since last year. I would say that the testing is limited because mostly internal, and then also just some of the folks that I speak to online have run games, and I've solicited feedback from those people. There are some really cool parts of so the game is solid overall, like the system. That doesn't mean that it's perfect. I think that there's room to improve. It's way further along than a lot of the other competing systems in the space right now, but that doesn't really matter because eventually they'll get to that point. I but that being said, there are some things that I want to reevaluate and say what is actually exciting about this process or about the different mechanics in the game and what isn't exciting or stands to be improved. So in the Alpha 6, you'll find updates to like gold instead of counting individual gold pieces. You'll find like a more streamlined way to manage that, a little bit more abstracted. So just like kind of one layer removed from the actual process of picking up coin pieces and then spending them on things. And the other is better management of your weight. So like inventory is kind of obnoxious in my opinion. I think it works totally fine. It's just inelegant, and I think I found a better way to do that. You'll find changes like uh, some elaboration on like how trials are delivered so that you can progress your character. Some elaboration on uh, some of the elements that were kind of introduced to last minute, but didn't really get some enough play testing in. So you're talking about features like the ability to diffuse a combat at the end, basically what equates to like a morale check or whether or not you can run away or force the enemies to run away, that sort of thing. And then the last thing that I really want to hammer home is during the character creation process, backgrounds super fun, contacts super fun. Um, a lot of the character creation process very good up until the point where you start having to pick out your equipment, and it gets really grindy. Grindy is not the right word. It's very specific. It's like okay, you're going through a whole list of weapons and then figuring out what you can equip and what does what. And realistically, so introduced starter kits in the last version of the game, and I think that what I would like to see in Alpha Packet 6 is basically more starter kits for everybody, and just say that that's what you start with. If you want to go further, then it's just on the player to go through and pick out their individual equipment. But I don't think that most people really need that to get going. It's a major slowdown with the character creation, and I think it's something that we can drastically improve. So, with that being the case, those are the main changes that'll be uh, for the time being. Who knows how that'll shake out? But those are the main changes that'll take place in the next alpha. So basically, I was talking about the highs and lows, and then this is going to be the final alpha version of the game. So update 6, it's going to be free to everybody. You'll be able to download it, play it, create characters, that sort of thing, and it'll still go up to level 6, which is midway through the game. For the testing process, going to release a Google Forms after that to figure out how people feel about the individual features of the game and what adds, what detracts, and what kind of experience that they're expecting. So that'll be toward the very end of this campaign. Basically, I'm going to drop Alpha 6. And frankly, if the campaign doesn't fund, it's totally fine. Alpha 6 is free for you to play forever. And you can just kind of continue to, like, if you enjoy the game, you play the game. The game won't receive any more updates unless it's something that I can, like, juggle, which I very likely cannot. But we'll see. I'm getting ahead of myself. Try to fund the game. If you like the experience that we're trying to offer, then you can help push us further. All right. Oh man, I'm really staying on track. This is good. Go me. And if you haven't played the alpha already, please go download it. There's a free alpha core rules. That's 140 plus pages of hard work that you get totally for free. Alpha quick start, same sort of thing. It's a pared down rule set. There's 5 pre-generated characters, and then there's a separate beginner's adventure that can piggyback right off of the adventure that's built into the quick start. So everything that you need to start playing today. Uh, Not only start playing, like push that stuff further. You can do a lot with the game as it currently stands. Wow, I'm hauling balls through this. I guess we'll jump into the Q&A. So there were a number of questions that were submitted pretty recently, or rather, yesterday is when I put up the post, and we're just going to walk through them one by one. And like I said, there's still some time, so you can like submit your you could submit your own questions, and then we can answer them. I think what I should have done it probably at the start of the stream is talked about like what the game is, because I'm sure some folks are joining that have no idea what Distal is. But you can check out the campaign page. There's a whole lot of that. But feel free to ask specific questions if you like. Boop a doop boop boop. Why is this here? Okay, let's see. Nope, I'm still in the corner. Why am I? Nobody puts Rel in the corner. I don't know why I'm over here in the lower right hand side. That's okay. That's so weird. Wait, hold on. I gotta fix it. Hey, Fabio. Fabio is asking, also come from the PS2 days. You still play? I do not. Oh, this is like a Gallo stream. It might be. Here, give me just a moment. I'm trying to fix some of the silliness. What is even happening? I don't know why Twitch wants me to have a little mini player in the lower right hand corner. I don't want that. Oh, it's not Twitch. It's a mini player because I'm looking at the website, and that's what BackerKit does. Okay, well I feel dumb. It's all good. Thanks, Henry. Okay. Yes, indeed. Big smart. Cool. Well, let's go through some questions. Talk about them. So, Chaos Crew asks, on the pictures displaying the book having two separate parts, it shows two different covers. Will it be one book with two distinct sections, or will it be two thinner books, one book for prep and one for play? So, what Chaos Crew is referring to is that the way that we're doing the hardcover in this game is that it is there's two sides basically, and it's a little bit of a difficult concept to explain because, well, okay, I guess it's not that difficult to explain. It's just difficult to visualize. Take two books and then glue them together, and that's what we've created. Except you can read it from both sides. So that's I already answered that down here. Imagine taking two books and gluing them together. That's basically what it amounts to. Sparkle Phoenix asks, what are the biggest areas you still feel need playtesting? What feels solid and locked in? So when it comes to play testing the game, I think what's solid are backgrounds. So the character creation process up until the equipment, I think feels solid. When it comes to the rules, I think I think it's all really good. I but it's also really good because it's a well established baseline. So the combat feels very much like D&D. It's a tactical turn-based game. Even a lot of the rules that we're using are kind of like things that were homebrew and then brought into to Distal. And I feel like there's areas to improve it. So things like flanking doesn't exist in the game um, because it creates some weirdness. But there are like specific rules for things that mimic flanking for like certain classes and that sort of thing. So there's a lot of like little stuff, and I would say that some of that needs to be tested. I think the actual values for some of the willpower die needs to be tested. I think death mark mechanics over a long period of time need to be tested, but that's campaign level stuff. And I wish I could fast forward a year and say like, look back and see how players have played through their whole campaigns and how that's worked. But I think that the best we'll be able to do is just keep playtesting and also do that at like higher levels, and then have GMs who are really uh, trying hard to like not kill their players, but punish them severely. See how much you can dish out as far as a character, like make them suffer so that you can feel how the game is different. Let's see. So there are some community questions. Maybe I'll just like intersperse that throughout. So Krabsov is asking, what problem does Distal solve? Okay, this is an awesome question because it makes me feel it's like it's what Distal's. Okay, so when I play D&D, I feel like I'm never at any risk of dying. I have to play like an idiot because the GMs or the DMs don't want to punish me. There are good reasons for this. First of which is that if you've really invested time in a character, if you lose that character, you feel like you've lost a lot of that time spent, unless they die in like a heroic way, and then it fuels your future characters. But because of that, because it's so like disruptive, a GM isn't really given permission at a lot of tables to feel like they can actually challenge their players. Distal does this differently because you are not inherently you're not really at risk of dying flat out. So, for example, in Dungeons and Dragons, you you can go down, um, and then you can get just hit by something that's standing next to you, and then you lose that character. There's not really any counterplay. The opposite side can happen where you go down, and then players pick you back up because healing is more effective to pick people back up than it is to prevent them from going down in the first place. Distal takes that idea and flips it on its head, where damage ablation is more important. And if you so try to deal with damage up front, like wear heavy armor to mitigate damage. Position yourself correctly so that you don't take damage. Try to heal preventatively so that you don't fall down. Because if you do fall down, the scars that you receive, while they aren't death saves, not death saves that can like insta give your character, in a round or whatever. What they are permanent scars that drastically change should change the outlook that the character has on the world around them. So mechanically, you receive a death mark, and then you can, like at level one, it's you have 5 maximum death marks plus your level plus your fortitude, which amounts to typically 6 to 7 death marks max, just at level one. So what that means is that you can go down, and then you can last 6 rounds until you're stabilized, and then you'll be uh, and you won't die during that time. However, that would just like jack up your character. So the thing about death marks is that you are accumulating them over time. They're permanent scars. So you want that not to happen. Uh, and then when you wake back up, when you're stabilized, it uh, you receive mechanical penalties, but also you become a little bit more resilient to death in the future. So that balance will need to be sorted out. Right now, I think it works, but the long-term repercussions are something that we need to feel out. So to get back to your question, Crabsoft, that's one of the ways that we address that lack of meaningful stakes in the game. Uh, the lack of a GM being able to feel good about punishing players or like challenging them because there's too much risk of uh, there's a risk of very quick, meaningless death in D&D, or the opposite, whereas like if you don't really go hard, then it's easy for you to like pick people back up. So we ride this like a line for long-term results instead of the short-term disruptions, and that plays into your character, and hopefully it gives you a more attachment to that character and watching their story evolve over time. Hopefully that answers the question, and hopefully it's not too like loosey goosey. There's some mechanical stuff in there as well. But ultimately, what we're trying to address is just make a game that's a little bit more grounded and has more meaningful repercussions. Let's go back to the questions. So, see, when leveling up a character or group of players, do you follow a point system or maybe a goal based system? Do you have a unique leveling system for Distal? Yeah, so this also plays into the question that Crabsoft has. So, Molotov Dojo Rat asked that. And so when it comes to leveling up a character in Distal, the way that it's done is that you very similar, I guess, to experience. You have experiences. They're called trials. So whenever you face a hardship, whenever like so for example, if you're in the middle of a no-win situation, or if you've uh, gone close to death, or if one of your companions died, you will endure a trial, and the trial gives you progression towards the next character level. And it's up to the GM to kind of discern what sorts of impacts the normal play is is having on those characters from like a role playing perspective. It's a little bit more fluid way of handling things, um, handling level than, or I would say more narrative way of handling character growth than you'd find in Dungeons and Dragons. So in Dungeons and Dragons, you can either do it very experience driven, where you are you're giving them experience points for things that they kill. You in Distal, or rather, I'm sorry, in Dungeons and Dragons, you can also, and this is how most tables play, to my understanding, is using what people call milestone leveling, but basically it's uh, whenever it makes sense to level up for the purposes of moving through a campaign, you level the characters up. So it's like story based in that way. What we do is a little bit different in that uh, the onus is on the GM to challenge the players, throw stuff at them that really makes them feel hardship, makes them struggle, because that's ultimately what progresses their character. So you endure these trials, and you gain a trial even if like you don't even need to overcome a challenge. You just need to deal with that challenge. And by virtue of that struggle, that's what provides you power and progression. Um, Hopefully that answers that question. I think the rules do a decent job of saying like, okay, this is how you hand out trials, but I think I could push that further. And that's something that I want to do in Alpha 6. Let's see. What else we got? So Crabsoft mentions with the way the backgrounds work, it might be neat to set some specific goals ahead of time, kind of like how inspirations work in BG3. So I like that, and also I don't know that that's what we're trying to hit. So Dragonbane does a really good job at this, where I haven't played Dragonbane full disclosure. I've just seen gameplay of it. But the way that they calculate experience is that at the end of an adventure, you you check on what your character has done. Has it adventured to a new part of the world? Has it uh, did it kill an enemy? I think is one. And then did it give in to its flaws or I think that's it. It's like it's I don't think they describe it as flaws, but basically like your character has a flaw and if they let that overtake them for example, like extreme anger. So if they've just like, blow their lid, then it's uh then they're going to get experience for that. So it kind of incentivizes you to lean into some of those aspects of your character. However, it feels to me it feels fake. And I think I find it a little bit difficult to articulate why that's the case, but I think when it maybe it's because it's a gamified mechanic that isn't left up to the conversation at the table. I really like it when you're so I view tabletop role playing games as a an experience to be played with or through like interpersonal relationships. And Distal in particular does a lot to kind of like set the tone for you having that open communication. Like even backgrounds do this, contacts do this, curios do this. They encourage you to interact with the GM, and even in the session zero, like you build organizations, and that's all like an experience with all the people at your table, and the GM is involved because everybody needs to be on the same page. So you're all working together to create this story that has a mechanical structure behind it, but isn't gamey as you mentioned. Yeah. Let's see. Let's go on to the next one. So Bartrack has a bunch of good questions here. What would be considered the optimal level to start at for a 1-2 shot adventure? I would say level one. So the way that we do the leveling in this game is that all of the monsters that you're fighting are at different tiers because there are like different. So while your character may be leveling, levels 1 through 4, or rather 1 through 3, are going to feel a little bit similar. And then when you hit level 4 is when you get your next health bump. So levels 4 through 7 are going to feel very similar. And because of that, the monsters that we encourage you to fight are kind of in those brackets. And the way that we do that, or the reason that we do that is, I guess, for a few reasons. The first of which is that it creates a more grounded uh, world where the strength of monsters is actually going to start outpacing your characters at the higher tiers of play, which in my opinion should be what's happening. If you're fighting big, powerful, scary things, they should feel like big, powerful, scary things, opposed to something that you can put a forest wall in front of and then just laugh at. And then this other one here, Bartrek says, "Why did you decide to do a class-based game versus a classless one?" I think that ease of understanding is one of the biggest beneficial aspects of using classes, and it's also helpful to have something that you can see and understand the fantasy of. So, for example, if you're using a kind of like a class-based system where you're like picking all the bits and pieces, you can call it a paladin. You can role play it as a paladin, but it can, but that's up to you. Like it puts a lot of onus on the player to say like, what am I? Whereas I think a helpful touchstone is that the existing paradigms that we understand through like Tolkien and Gygaxian sort of just the structure, the archetypes that people play into. We can visualize that via a class and then project the type of fantasy that we want to live onto that character through just like the class archetype. I'm probably explaining that poorly, but hopefully that makes sense. Another question that that Bartrek asks is there such a thing as too many classes in a CCRPG game? What constitutes as too many and why? I don't. Uh, that's a good question. So I don't know that there are necessarily. I think that in the that's where the value of expansions comes from in like supplemental material. And you see this, of course, in D&D, where every big piece of work is going to have new subclasses in it. I think you can do that via classes as well. Actually, I'll take it a step further, and I'll say throughout leveling in Distal, every third level you gain a class signature. And if I was releasing a supplement and wanted to like reinvigorate some older classes, you can just add signatures, and then so it'd be like four different signatures, and then you call that the package that you're shipping with them, and then that could feel really fresh. And then it gives you a lot of versatility, like mix and match things as you level up characters. I'm a big fan of build, like creating builds, just because it's fun to figure out how the game works and also how to break it, and it lets you uh, deviate away from like the default fantasy that a class provides by virtue of like envisioning it in a different way. So um, I think that in the core material, you might end up with too many classes if you are. I think that's a feel thing. You're probably going to hit a point where you're like, does this really need to be here? But our classes are meant to be kind of specific and give you specific fantasies with room to build them the way that you like. So I definitely don't think we're there yet. And there's definitely a lot of fantasies that have not been fulfilled. So Henry says, I feel like I'd be compelled to find the first excuse to tick those boxes required for experience. Yeah, so that's a good point. Um, so in games like Dragonbane, where it's very codified how you progress your character, it causes it the players are encouraged to game it. Like you wanna do the things to get the points, and that pulls away from the story. So if you have the GM is meant to be like an arbitrator, because they can feel out where that's at, where that feeling is at the table, and they can, like, up the challenge if they need to do that. They can give you, they can also just, like, give you experience that they wanna, kind of move you, up the level or, like, up the leveling curve to suit the story and that sort of thing. But, by putting the onus kind of on the GM instead of on the individual player to, to game, then I think the feeling will be different. And it's also a little bit more akin to Dungeons and Dragons in the way that we tend to run our campaigns in modern games. Do, 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 do. Mike Renoff says, "How much mathematical stats, learning, or research did the game mechanics require you to learn for this rel?" Not much. I analyze a lot of or analyzed a lot of Dungeons and Dragons Fifth Edition, and since a lot of this is based on uh, the things that I liked and didn't like about that game, it was very easy to understand why the math works and doesn't work, and the things that we complain about. For example, like you die really easily at low levels in Dungeons and Dragons. It makes the game feel more gritty, and that's by virtue of having fewer health points. And then you have to ask yourself the question, like, okay, why is that math wrong? It's because like you could throw in a monster that might have a multi attack, and just by virtue of doing that, like the action economy is wrong, and of course it's going to outpace the health. There's like a lot of little things like that that you understand if you're like breaking down the game and also talking about the game with a lot of other experienced people in the space. But but it's definitely yeah, I would say less. I don't know. Understanding like about dice is also a big deal. For example, like the difference between a D4 and a D6 is an average of one. Like not specifically, but that's the average change in what you'd get when you're like rolling the die. Uh, it's like stuff like that, and then you have to like value it. Like, okay, well, what? How much is that worth? Like, is that extra point of damage worth? And some of that stuff is like why you see in Dungeons and Dragons like a maul rolling 2d6 is way more useful than a great sword rolling 1d12. Pretty sure those are the stats. Um, because you're always going to minimum 2 and the maximum is the same. So like there's no value in having a 1d12. It's just a weaker weapon, stuff like that. Uh, and I try to avoid a lot of those pitfalls. I love design, um, the numbers part of it, and that definitely comes from just being a designer in the games industry. Let's see. So actually, Aaron says probably too late to comment. I don't think so. Let's see, but I was wondering how easy would it be to create your own campaign based off this TTRPG? Very very easy. The goal is to create a foundation for you to build upon. There's even an adventure builder, though it's very very loose. There's an adventure builder to inspire some ideas in the alpha material right now. Uh, but if you have experience playing or like building your own uh, campaigns in Dungeons and Dragons, or just like coming up with adventures, it matches almost 1 to 1 uh, as far as just the process of it. So super quick. Let's see. Cywitch says, Cywitch? Are there game systems which this one is based on or inspired by, or are there systems this game is a reaction to because it fell short? Yeah, so we talked about that a whole lot. But Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition is definitely this game originated from the idea that there were aspects of the game that weren't really catering to my style of play because I want there to be consequences. I want all the decisions that I make in the game to have repercussions, and I want to be able to roll with those punches. I think a part of why I like a more grounded game instead of one where the GM's trying to protect all their characters and the players at their table even uh, is just that you get to discover the game as you play it, in that sense uh, of learning about your character and just like how they react to certain situations. That's something that I really really enjoy. I love watching a character grow as much as I enjoy controlling them at the table, if that makes any sense. Okay, so I'm going to refresh this page one more time. If anybody has any last minute nope, no last minute questions. Okay. So, oh, actually, I missed one. I missed one from Dark. Give me just a moment. Let's see. So, what sort of content? So, Dark King says, what sort of content should we expect from the monthly digest? So, you can check out the monthly digest. Right meow here. So, this is the full. If you're a follower of the project, you can check out download the April Distal Digest. This is a monthly supplement that is meant to improve your games, expand your tool set, and spark some creativity. It's going to be uh, just it can be ideas for like a cool moment in time. So something like this. It's just it's not poetic, but and then you can see some of my crappy art, and I'll also talk about some of the mechanical side of the game. Uh, and then last in April, we had an article from John from Dragon Mind that talks about GMing, and there's other stuff in here as well. Very very short, so they're uh, meant to be like it's a digest size, but also I think easy to digest as far as the content that we're providing, and I think that it'll expand over time. Like we'll run into uh, we'll have points where there's going to be less going on in the actual game and more just building out the digest, and that'll kind of be the focus from month to month is the goal. So I think that you'll see more content as it passes. But as far as the archetypes, it's uh, setting inspiration. It's mechanics. Uh, it's a peek behind the screen. It's also new stuff. Like in the April digest, there are three new monsters that were meant to be in a s- um, a desert setting because that doesn't currently exist in the alpha material. So you have something like there's a scorpion and just the sand itself trying to kill people, and then also like a big glass golem, like a golem made entirely of glass that like can refract sunlight through it and do like fire damage that way. So cool stuff like that, and you'll see more of it. The May monthly digest is going to land. I think. I think next, if not next week, it might be the week following. We'll have to see. We will have to see. Okay, so with that being the case, I currently have a list. Let's say one, two, three, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so I'm gonna do some rolling behind the scenes, and then figure out who our winner is of the giveaway. So if y'all give me just one moment, figure out who wins. Actually, until then, Krebs off asking another question. Fantasy and monster wise, how far from D&D is Distal setting? It's uh, it's everyday fantasy. So Gygax Tolkien sort of feels, but the the world is totally different. The lore is totally different. We hold on to certain staples that you can expect, like elves and dwarves still exist, and they're very similar to the elves and dwarves that you'd probably expect. We don't say like, oh, all of our elves are actually red, and because that's just not the fantasy that we're trying to evoke. And then so we take that sort of familiar landscape, and then we push in our own distinct elements. So things like the Yvain are a race of uh, they have three glowing eyes and like energy or magic elemental juice runs through their veins, and it's cooler than this. Um, and like that's not something that you would probably see in another setting. So we try to pepper that sort of stuff in. It is a question though how far I should push the setting, and I actually don't know the exact answer to that because I want to create a foundation that people can build off of. Except it should also be distinct enough that you can say like, oh, okay, it takes place here. So we can go like really wild with it. Like I, so just yesterday we're talking about like, oh, what if the currency in the world was like twine, thread. It's like a magical, sort of like filament or string, and this is the thing that they trade in. Like, what would happen because of that? Well, you'd probably have a lot of reverence from the different cultures of the world for using this twine, but also just appreciating it in kind of derivative ways where just textiles would be really popular. You would see people weave their wealth into their clothing. You would see, I can imagine like cities just with like a bunch of like strands of just string uh, everywhere, kind of just because of the aesthetic that and the reverence to that sort of culture. And and I think it'd be so easy to create just like a really cool, original, crispy setting uh, that would sorry, uh, people would get robbed naked. Oh no! Um, but it'd be very easy to do something that's really specific like that, and then I wonder how much people would enjoy it, and I wonder how much like what people have signed on for. So realistically, the project is uh, very early on in its life. We could take the setting all sorts of different directions if we wanted to do that, but I want to reconcile that with a fantasy that people like the baseline fantasy that that people are kind of expecting and expecting to build off of and continue playing for years and years and years. So I'm honestly I don't know the answer to that question, and I feel like I can very easily ride the line, but I do want to push it further. Yeah, Mike says the twine idea is neat. It'd be super cool because you can very easily say like, oh, okay, well, maybe a lot of methods of communication is, people put like knots in twine, and that like tells a story. You can think of twine as like the weaving of tapestries. You could think of twine as just even when you're using it as currency, like what's a spool of twine worth versus like, okay, well, this is like, I'm going to take and cut a bit, and this is, a piece for you that has a, or a certain value associated with it. All of that could be like super, super cool. And then you can think of weapons that have like this sort of, imagine like an actual needle with an eye at the end of it, and then people having just little dangly bits off of that, and just aesthetically very interesting. But you could also say that like, oh, that's a nation of the world, and that's a people. They do this thing over here. Because if you go like full like if you go like with a really, really hyper specific setting, just to use the twine example, it's like why is the name of the game not reflect that specific idea? Hindsight's 2020. But yeah, there's a lot of that. Crapswap says something I found useful is keeping the same setting and using different ages to meet that base. Yeah, that's a pretty good example, or a pretty good way to handle it. Um, I think Brandon Sanderson was talking about how the different eras of his books were like, I think it's like fantasy, and then you go to modern day, and then you go to sci-fi, and it's all within the same world. And then the system of magic that they're using is the reason like things evolve the way that they evolve. Uh, yeah, let's see. For example, in the early days were elves and dwarves, and now it's the it's the red town, so players can just play the early ages for dwarves. Yeah, no, that's a good way to handle it. I want to create. I think the goal for this particular project is to create one specific setting and say this is the game that you're playing. You can go different directions from here, but this is the base. Um, moving to different ages, I think there's just a lot that you'd have to like. That would be a totally separate book. I feel like a setting guide associated with that, and you could totally do that. But for the base game, I gotta I gotta temper my enthusiasm. That doesn't mean I'm not going to go this direction, but it's something that I think about for sure. Okay, well, I definitely haven't rolled on the thing I was going to roll on. Hold on. Ooh, my tummy's going. Random the die roller. Okay, I'm gonna roll a die, and then let's see. Let's see where we end up with the people. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'll have to re-roll. I'm using a die that's too large. No, I'm not. Okay. All right. Okay. Well, we have a. Let me just validate some stuff. Um, Hold on just a moment. Uh, do, 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 do. Oh, we could do it. Okay. Well, we have a winner, and that winner is. Hold on just a moment. Can I put this on the stage? I'm just trying to make sure that I'm not doxing myself. It's very important. Uh, All right, let's quickly go through whatever remains of the chat here. Is this how dare you? um okay, well I think that's it. I'm open to questions if anybody has any last minute ones, but basically that was the update that I was trying to give all of you. It's been 1 week. We are doing okay as far as the tracking of the project is concerned. I would love to see us push it further. So it's still tenuous as to whether or not this is going to continue to be funded. Um, the last few days tend to be where that the last upswing is, and hopefully that would push it over the line. But if you have any friends uh, who are interested in playing a new D20 system, get them to support the project. And if you want to play it for free, download the alpha material. It is listen, listen a lot. I think that we're friends. Uh, Henry says, "Do you have interviews such lined up?" I do not, unfortunately. I think the project is at the point where definitely gone through like a lot of the creators, and there because there's a bunch of really interesting things on the horizon, and I don't think that the existing D&D content creators are in a position to really care about this. That's the long and short of it. But if you know anybody um, who would be open to interviewing, I'm always down to talk about this game for far too long. Okay. Uh, okay. Well, hey, listen. Uh, so Crimson Verse. So what's next for you when you get this thing when this thing gets funded? Uh, so as far as the actual process is concerned, uh, the production, just getting the game completed and the hardcover out being produced, that sort of thing. That's going to take some effort. Aside from that, though, I am like I'll be working on the monthly digests kind of throughout the process, which after this campaign, I'm just going to continue to release them on Patreon. So folks who are able to or want to pick them up, they can just subscribe there. And then aside from that, I don't know, just work, I guess. The if Distal is like done and dusted, it's a foundation. So depending on how much interest there is in future settings and just expansion of the game, that's the direction that I would like to go. I would really love to I like to write. That is something that I feel like comes very easily to me. I don't think that I have a knack for the lore stuff. So I think that I would ideally try to employ people who are really good at those things. Um, and yeah, but as far as like the gameplay, nah, okay. Maybe I'm beating myself up too much. I'm doing a bad job marketing my product. I'm amazing. Let's see. I had a language question above, but I might have missed the answer when swapping devices. Oh, I think I missed your question. Let me see. I'll try to find it. Novi. Oh, okay. Oh, wow. Yeah, I totally glazed over this. Bam. Look at that. So Novi asks, uh, Alpha Packet 05 has multiple mentions of creatures being able to speak your language, and some instances of separate written languages, Canter Scratch for Furies, or the ability to speak with beasts in a Wild Walker bloodline. But unless I miss something, there isn't any variety of spoken languages amongst the various races. So this is intentional to the point where It's meant to be something that you determine at the table. So, in if you if you play D&D, you need the lowdown on, like, what languages are being spoken before you choose them, because there are so many different languages. And and at the same time, like, a single character can speak all sorts of different languages depending on how they spec, to the point where it either doesn't matter or it probably doesn't matter. And that's one of the things that I wanted to avoid. So I think that if you speak like you'd ask a player basically. Actually, let me walk that back a little bit and say if you are playing a wild walker and you see an animal, the player knows that they're like, oh, I have this trait that can let me speak with animals. Can I speak to that animal? GM says yes, and that's as far as that needs to go. For the for like Furies who have this they do have this specific language that they etch, like it's a written language on objects, and it's meant to be kind of like code to speak to other Fury. The Fury player will walk into the town and say like, because they know this about their character, they would say, "Do I see any other like Canter Scratch around the town?" And then the GM would say like, "Oh, yeah, you see that there's some warnings about here." So it's a way to allow the players to ask for more information instead of the characters not having X language or Y language. Therefore, they can't really flex that anyway. So it's does that make sense? It's meant to create opportunities instead of restrict opportunities. Hopefully, that's a good way to phrase it. Alrighty. So I think that is about it. There you go. Thank you all for hanging out. I think we kept this live stream on point. We're going to do another one on the 15th. And again, if you have not backed the project, please feel free to do that. And also pick up the free source material right now at playdisrpg.com, which just links you to the website. And then you follow the project, and then you go to the project update that has all the stuff and things. Thank you all for hanging out. Peace.